Okay, now let's see how that. Okay, now you can see the calculator. That's a good thing. So if I take 2,000 and I multiply that by 0.0625, I get 125 bucks. And then I'm going to add 2,000, and then I'm going to add 95, and I'm going to add 55 just to be annoying. I put that stuff in there. I get 2275. All right, let's hope that's the right answer. What I wanted you to know here today is something kind of interesting. When you take 6.25% of the sticker price and you add that to the sticker price, see this first 2,000, that is 100% of the sticker price. And then the tax is 6.25% of the sticker price. You actually get the same answer if you take 2,000 and you multiply it by 1.0625. Now the 1 stands for 100%. So if I take 2,000 and multiply it by 1, I get 2,000. If I multiply it by 0.0625, that part's the tax. So this is the price, including the tax. And right away, I get 21.25. And then I add 95 and 55. Really? Yep. And I get 22.75. I hope you're happy with that. This is going to take a little time for all this to sink in. There is a reason why I want you to know about the cool way. The cool way of adding 6.25% is to multiply it by 106.25% changed to a decimal. And you'll need to know that for a problem like problem 2. All right. So you got 1623.75. And that includes 8.25% sales tax. I will tell you what most people do, which is incorrect. What? Most people multiply that by 0.0825 in an attempt to calculate the sales tax, and they get 133.96 to the nearest penny. And then they subtract that. Let me change it to a negative here. From 1623.75. And they get 1489.79. And a lot of you got that answer. Unfortunately, it's a very popular wrong answer. You want to zoom his screen in. Let's see if I can do it this way. I hope that's better. I'm looking at it on my laptop. It looks okay. All right. Here's what you have to realize. The tax is in that number, 1623.75, has the tax in it, but you don't know what the price was before the tax was added. What you do know from what we talked about with the first problem is that 1623.75 is the original price before tax plus the tax. That means that 1623.75 is actually 100% of the price plus 8.25% of the price. So that means that is 108.25% of the price. So I have to actually divide that by 1.0825. Really. And I get 1,500. And that, ladies and gentlemen, is the answer. Really. Yep. So just to reiterate that, it's 1623.75 divided by 1.0825. And that is the calculation that would give you the right answer. This is going to be new to some of you. Some of you, it's maybe not. All right, now when you have a percent change, the price is either going to go up or down. If it goes up, that's a percent increase. If it goes down, it's a percent decrease. Either way, you take the amount of change and divide it by the old price. Really. So what's that going to be? Well, the amount of change, it went from 8,000 to 8,520. So 8,520 minus 8,000. Well, that's pretty easy. That's 520. And then guess what? I have to do 520 divided by the old. It's always based on the old price. So let's see how that plays out. 520 divided by the old price of 8,000. It says 0.065. Now, it says, what was the percent increase? The answer is not 0.065. You have to move the decimal point 2 places to the right to change that to a percent, or equivalently multiply by 100, and you'll see it's 6.5%. Boom. All right. Again, please hold your questions till the end. I want to have a nice, clean recording of this, and we'll see how that goes. Now, here's another tricky problem. He wants to have $3,000 in savings at the end. He's going to get that by putting in some money, a bunch of money, and he's going to get 5% simple interest, means you leave it in for a year and you get 5% in addition to what you put in there. So what that means is, here's what you don't do, but a lot of people do this anyway. They say 3,000 times 0.05, this is incorrect, by the way, is 150 bucks. And let's subtract that from 3,000. So if you got 2850, you got the most popular wrong answer. The idea here is the same as before. The 3,000, that's going to be what you put in the deposit. Well, not deposit, but yeah, it is deposit. Plus 5% of the deposit. And then what we've talked about earlier today, a couple of times, that means the 3,000 is the deposit plus 5% of the deposit. That is 105% of the deposit. Well, that's pretty cool. So your calculation, therefore, is 3,000. I want to know, what is it 105% of? And I will tell you, it frequently comes up. Where does the one come from? Yeah, that's a good question. 1.05. That's 2857.14. Now, here's something that's going to save you some points if you pay attention to it. Somebody asked during the little exercise we had last week, how should we round this off? Well, it says right here, to the nearest dollar. Oh, so to the nearest dollar is 28.57. Now that's going to be a little short. It's going to be short by 14 cents or so. So if you put that in there, 28.57 times, well, could do it the cool way, 1.05. That's going to be close to 3,000. Okay, it's 15 cents off, but I asked you to round it to the nearest dollar, and that's what it means. The nearest dollar, well, it had 14 cents in there, so we had to round it down, and that's why we're a little short. But please don't change my problem. Don't say, well, if I round it off, I'm not going to have 3,000. I know that. I'm asking you two things. Can you work the problem? And can you round it off? All right. So we're going to make some sausage that is 50% pork, 37% beef, and the rest venison. The rest, that's key because 50% plus 37% equals 87%. Oh, okay. Well, the rest must be whatever's left. Now, whatever's left, when you take 87% of it, is going to be the other 13%. Hmm. 100% minus 87% equals 13%. I didn't put the percent just because I'm being very informal here. So 65 pounds of venison, that is the other 13% of the meat. So my calculation is, gee, I wonder what 65 is 13% of. Well, it must be. And if you want to, I'd like to do this because brings your attention to the decimal point. So if I did 65, what is that 13% of? Well, it's 13% of 65 divided by 0.13, and that's 500. Now, don't go wild and put down 500 for the answer. Why? Because what was the question? How much pork? Oh, it's 50% pork. So I have to multiply that by 50%, which is 0.5 or 0.50, doesn't matter. So the answer is 250. It's 250 pounds. And a lot of people put 500 because they got so excited that they discovered how much total meat is necessary. Excuse me. But how much pork is the question? Hmm, this is trickier than I thought. So here you go. The barbecue station sells sandwiches for $6. This price includes sales tax of 7.75%. So how much is of that goes for that $6 goes for the sandwich, and how much is tax? Well, here you go. First of all, 7.75 is 7.75. And if you're not sure about that, just do 3 divided by 4, and it says 0.75. Oh, okay. So 7.75 is 7.75%. Now, when you take that tax and add it on, you wind up with the cost of the sandwich plus 7.75% of the cost of the sandwich. Oh, so once again, the sandwich is going to be $6 divided by 1.0775. Don't forget there's two sevens, really. So 6 divided by 1.0775. Now, here's the first, but not the last time I'm going to say this. If you're dealing with money, like $6, if you're dealing with money and you get an answer like that, you always round it to the nearest penny, which is where this 6 is, unless I ask you to round it to something else. I could say round it to the nearest dollar, round it to the nearest $1,000,000, whatever I ask you to round it to. But if I don't say, then round it to the nearest penny. So I'm going to round it off here, 5.56 or 5.57. And the answer depends on the next digit. That's an 8 there. 8 is big enough. So the answer is 5.57. And if you're so excited, you write that down and work the next problem. In this case, you're going to miss half of it because it says how much represents the cost of the sandwich and how much is tax. Oh, so that's the sandwich. Oops. And then we have to take $6 and subtract 5.57. $6 minus 5.57 is 43 cents. Okay, now you can either put 43 cents or you can put $0.43 because that means 43 cents. Do not put 0.43 cents for this problem. That such a thing as 0.43 cents. It's not even a half a penny. 0.5 cents is a half a penny. So it's 43 cents or $0.43 for the tax. And you're going to see that I grade this pretty strictly. All right. So I got this problem many years ago when I sold a house and I needed some money out of that. And I told the real estate agent I need $81,780. So here is what he did. He said 81,780. You're going to have to pay me 6%. They've changed that around a little bit. So that means I'm going to get $4,908 and $6.80. So we'll add that to your 81,780, and we'll sell your house for that. Remember, that was on page 6. That was the very popular wrong answer. Why? Because if that's what you sell the house for, the real estate agent gets 6% of that. And here's the cool way of figuring out your share. If you multiply that by 0.94, if the agent gets 6%, then you get the other 94%, and that is not 81,780. And I pointed that out to him, and he said, well, it's close. And I said, yeah, but it's off almost $300. He said, it's only $300. And I said, yes, my $300. So he said, okay, I've been doing this for 15 years. And I said, you've been doing it wrong for 15 years. What you have to recognize, you better recognize, is that $81,780, that is the seller's percent of the size. That's not the percent. The seller's percent is the other 94%. So this is 94% of something. And to figure out what, it's 94%. It's 81,780 divided by 0.94. And you'll notice it gets bigger. Why is that? Because 81,780 divided by 0.94, when you divide by a number between 0 and 1, the answer gets actually bigger. We're not used to that because normally when we divide, the answer gets smaller. And it turns out to be exactly 87,000. Now notice you can check it out either by multiplying that by 0.06 and subtracting it, or just multiply it by 0.94. Calculate the seller's part. It's 81,780. There it is. Whoop, there it is. Okay, number 8 can get really complicated. You're going to have an $18,000 sticker price, and he's going to knock 20% off. And then he's going to add 6.25% sales tax, and then he's going to add $85 in fees. What is the total drive-out cost? There are a couple of ways of doing this. One way is 18,000, multiply that by 0.2 or 0.20. And there's nothing wrong with this. It's just a little awkward. 20% of that is 3,600. Okay. And so then I'm going to take 18,000 and subtract 3,600. And let me do it this way. I'm going to change that to a negative and add 18,000. And I get 14,400. Now, here's what I want you to understand as quickly as possible. Oops. I can get the same answer. Here's the cool way. Instead of calculating the 20% of 18,000 that he's going to knock off, let me calculate not the 20% I'm not going to pay, but let's calculate the 80% I am going to pay. And there it is. Really? Yeah. 18,000. Calculate the 80% that I am going to pay. And that's 14,400. And that is pretty cool. Okay, the other thing that we're going to do is add 6.25% tax. Well, you can take 14,400 and multiply that by 0.625. This is painful. And you get 900 bucks. Or, cool way, but we haven't gotten to the cool way yet. Let me just fix that right now. So then we have 14,400, and then I have to add $900 to that, plus, and get 15,300. The cool way is to recognize that you're going to pay 14,400 plus 6.25% of 14,400. And that means you're going to pay, keep forgetting that four, you're going to pay 106.25%. And you notice I made a little error there. No, that's the wrong spot. Sorry. $14,400 times 1.0625 is 15,300. And then whether you do it the cool way or not, we have to add $85 to that for those fees. And so there's your answer, 15,385. I will tell you, in having taught this particular topic for more than 50 years, I can tell you that almost nobody in 50 years has gotten this right without some instruction. Good news is, after adequate instruction, I want to show you how we can check this in kind of a strange way. If that's the right answer, 15,385, what was it before you added the $85? Well, it was 15,385 minus 85, and that's 15,300. Now, if you know the cool way, 15,300 includes the tax of 6.25%. So you can actually divide 15,300 by 1.0625, and you'll wind up with 14.4. And then you have to divide that by 0.8 to get back to the 18,000. And I'm going to show you in the book. This is quite tricky. Here I'm going to put the actual calculation. Yikes. 15,432. It says I'm going to 115 bucks in fees. So I got to subtract that. And after I do subtract that, I'm going to wind up with some number that has a tax in it. So I have to divide it by 1 point, the tax. Yikes. And then I have to actually divide that, believe it or not. I can find my divided by. I have to divide it by not 15%, but 0.85, 85%. And you'll see how this works, I hope. So 15,432 minus 115. Now you got to be very careful here and hit the equal sign to make sure it does that. And then you have to divide that by 1.06. Then you have to divide that by 0.85, and you get $17,000. Yikes. I'm going to show you where this is explained in the book here shortly. We just got a couple more problems to work. All right. This happens all the time in real life, believe it or not. You got some money in retirement, and I need $4,800 to remodel the kitchen or whatever. So here's the key. The internal revenue is going to get 33% of the amount withdrawn. And that is not the same thing as 33% of what's left. What it means is the 4,800, that is the other 67%, 33% from 100. So I need to know, what is 4,800 67% of? And the answer is 71.64. To the nearest dollar, you'd put 71.64 because 17 cents is not half a dollar. Wow, that's kind of weird. 4,800 divided by 0.67 equals 71.64 to the nearest dollar. Okay, now problem 11, folks have trouble with this for the entire semester quite frequently. Really? Yep. What you have to do for this one, well, you know, I've done it right here. You have to add all those grades together. You have so many A's, B's, C's, D's, and F's, and 5 and 12 and 20 and 4 and 2 is 43. If you get that wrong, it's likely you're going to miss the whole thing, every single one of these, because each one of these grades of 5, 12, 24, and 2, you have to divide that by the number of grades. And if you do that, I've done it with the calculator. Well, I'll just do 1 or 2 here. 5 divided by 43. That's equal to that. Now I change that to a percent by moving the point 2 places to the right. And I get 11.627. Now it says rounded to the nearest 0.1%. That's where the 6 is. After you change it to a percent, the nearest 0.1% is the first digit to the right of the decimal point. So check and see, is the 2 big enough to make it 11.7? And the answer is no. So you round it down to 11.6%. 12 divided by 43 is 0.2790, which is 27.90%. And the 0 is not big enough to make it. If it were 27.95, then you can't put a 10 where that 9 is. So you'd have to make it 28.0%. If you're rounding up a 9 to the next higher number, then you just go to the left and round that up instead. Okay, and likewise, 20 out of 43 is 46.51, which rounds to 46.5. 4 out of 43 is 9.30, which rounds at 9.3. And 2 out of 43 is 4.65, and the 5 is big